Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to Expedition Self with Sam Parado, a lifelong learner and entrepreneur. Sam is the creator of the growth-producing worlds of Expedition Self, where seekers hang out so they can live a conscious life of love and personal fulfillment. As she shares 4 decades of studying, guiding, and teaching, you'll learn how to go inside and build an empowered relationship with the self. Ignite your self-development process with Sam.
Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Sam Parado, and I am going to be your host this evening, hopefully for lots of really cool growth stuff. And also because tonight is my last live show for a while, and so it's kind of special in that context. Actually, I even have some candles because I also happen to be doing it on the full moon. And I thought, well, that would be a wonderful way to bring the moon and intuition, all those wonderful things in for all of us as we're here together. All right. Gosh, I want to just start this evening out with talking about something that I offered all along in my show. And I think I want to make sure that you reconsider it before I'm done. And that's because it's this free text that you get every day to remind you of growth And there are no strings, there's no hooks. You're not going to find out you're supposed to pay for it later. There's no extra stuff that you're going to be signed up for. It really was it was part of my mission, right, to get growth out to people. So I'm going to put another plug in here. And I even got the phone number. Oh, I forgot to do that reverse thing. Hold on. I think I know how to do this. Oh, yes, I do. Mirror camera. Did I do it? There we go. So, all right, now I'm going to put it so you can see it. So you want to dial the phone, put in your text 866-269-8545 and write the word join. And basically you will get a growth text every day. Like I wrote all of these to like help you stay connected. So anyway, that is really my biggest thing I would hope that you will take away from all of the conversations that we've been in, all the exploration that we've done. So tonight, and I don't remember the name, but I think it's Relationship Aikido, Mastering the Art of Self-Aware Interactions. And so we are going to be just talking about relationship nonstop tonight. And so I like to often start with a bit of an experiential activity just to get you in, like a meditation, just to get you into the space. So with that, how about we all take some deep breaths? Feel all that wonderful life-giving air come through your nose and down the back of your throat. And as it passes over all of that, allow the muscles, every muscle it touches, to relax, making more and more room to take your breath in. As it makes its way into your lungs, you notice all those individual vertebrae in your back that are enjoying the fullness as your rib cage expands and you make more and more room. You feel the fullness of life. You notice the breath supporting your heart, and your belly grows soft with each in-breath. And then as you release the breaths, let those stresses and the tension of the day go with it, giving it all back to the universe to carry for just a few moments. And when you feel like you've relaxed, you want to ask yourself this question. In the relationships that matter most to me, would I like to feel more emotional intimacy with that person? And what moments with this person might I like to recreate or make into something different? And as I think about my times with this person, let me reflect on the hurts or the disappointment or any moment that feels incomplete or not done. As you allow those thoughts and feelings to settle in with you, ask yourself one final question. What gets in the way of making it different for you? And as you find that answer, make sure there's a ready hug of self-appreciation waiting for you. Make sure you validate and acknowledge your journey and what it's taken of you to walk or run within it. And ask yourself the question again, what gets in the way of making it different? And finally, now that you have this small piece of the inner tidbit of knowing, say thank you to your whole self for appearing to you and to help you in tonight's work. And then allow the breaths to carry you back to the room you're sitting in, the scents and the places that feel so familiar, and back to my voice and here in the present. I just want to take a moment, since we're talking about relationship tonight. That is a relationship that you just created. When you go inside and request that some aspect of you show up and respond, and that you invite that part, you're building inner relationship, because inside of you there's all these aspects of who you are as a human being. You're just made up of so many pieces, so much complexity. So when you take even just the 2 minutes we did just now, you're building on that relationship with yourself. You're opening the door so that the unconscious self might actually communicate more with you, because it realizes you're welcoming of it, you're interested in it, you want it to show up. All right. Well, so you know how we often do the top 10 fundamentals, and I think there's a slide for that. I'm not sure. And it has the 15 all over it. Maybe not. All right. Well, so, yep, there it is. Was that it? Nope, it's the next one. The next one after that. There we go. Oh, it's not that one either. Okay. All right. We're just going to go with what I've got here. So there it is. All right. So we're doing the top 15 fundamentals tonight, and our focus, all right, we're good to go, is to get in another's world. So these fundamentals that we've been working on all along, which is to try to help you understand, if I focus on these areas, these ways of being, I am going to create more of the life that I want. So getting in another's world. Well, here's the thing. The truth about being a person is that your brain is a closed system, right? It sends information into this circular container, right? It goes down into the whole self, right? And then processes what returns to it. So it might seem so easy to think about getting in another's world, right? Because I think we all actually imagine that we're paying attention to other people and we're worried about their needs and all that. But because we're closed systems, the intellect has to really work to truly get out of their own perspective or understanding, right? These descriptions that we form in our own mind, these anticipation of people's needs or what they're thinking. Well, it's tough for us to get out of our own system and actually play on the basis of somebody else's eyes. So how often do you put your opinions away and simply listen to the words that someone is saying? And then ask questions for clarification rather than assuming you know what they mean or what they need. Or here's another question. How often do you truly listen to the words being spoken to you in the hopes of seeing what's different than the way you already understand it? Because I think most of us listen for where can we relate? Where can we connect? Where is it the same? So there's an element of trickery that's at work here because we so want to be related to each other so much, right? We want to feel one with the people in our lives. But what it causes us to do is to place our stuff on their stuff, right? And we can look very loving and very compassionate and very insightful, right? But oftentimes we don't realize that we actually took our stuff and placed it on their stuff. So underneath it all, at a soul self level, we know we are one. And we want that profound connection, but instead we try to make it happen through like the very limited nature of the intellect, right? Trying to use words to define things. And yes, I think the intellect is limited when it's by itself, when it doesn't have the sensory material in it. Excuse me. It doesn't have the emotional, like watery feel running through the system. So this is why it's challenging to get in someone else's world. Because while we want to be connected, everything about our construction works to reinforce our own understanding of ourselves rather than being able to leave that behind and try on the other person's experience in all of its grandness and its fullness. So what can you do? Well, you start with, you know that it's true, right? That you don't know what's really going on for another person. You have your own ideas, right? It's the most important thing. If you can say, I really don't know what's going on, even though I actually did respond to them and they said, oh, this is exactly what I needed. When you take the case in terms of how you relate, because that's what we're talking about tonight, how we relate, and you stop thinking you know, it's going to make a difference in terms of opening up the space. And then the second thing is to really practice, right? To start asking for clarification, start asking for more insight, right? Rather than just taking off with your rendition. Oh, that's exactly what I thought you were going to say. Okay, more information, like anything else here that we could put in the space to add more depth and more clarity and more pieces, right? Like the rungs of a ladder to connect with. You always want to take the case that there's something here that you don't know. So I wrote a poem for this. And so it's really about getting in someone else's world. No one really knows what it feels like for another person. Does anyone even want to know? Are we too busy trying to figure ourselves out instead? I wonder, what questions could I ask that would lead me to knowing? Sometimes I reluctantly listen when the other is too verbose and eager. In service to my own ego, to know things, I project my meanings on their words. In my need to protect my heart, I even limit the actual time allotted for talking so too much doesn't show up. It doesn't take long for me to take off to reminisce or process and validate my own wild ride, seeing my own experiences through theirs. That's called projection, and lots of times I'm clueless it's happening. You may not realize it, but I've used you to relate to me. You're not the focus of my understanding after all. At what point do I truly sit and relax in the center of your life, of your events, and your processes? And when can I admit that I don't know your experience, but am willing to? I'm sad to say the timing for this will likely occur after, and only after, I have done this for myself. Okay, well, so I don't know if any of you will remember, but I have been writing poems quite a bit in the last year, and I am now really trying to write every day, even if there's nothing to write about. And so I thought, well, what a great way to do work around getting in someone else's world. I want to pause just in this moment. I think that sometimes when we talk about growth, it sounds very abstract. But in truth, the idea is that if we talk about relationships and how to do relationships, it gives you the opportunity to get really honest with yourself and think about the places where you want something, where you feel the need for something, where you've gotten in a long-term space and it is the same. And I hope as we go through this conversation tonight, particularly, that you'll just keep letting it open until you find that relationship that is in fact ready for you to bring something else to it or something more to it. And of course, none of this means your relationships are bad or not great. It's just all about the idea that there is just this infinite, like amazing capacity to create connection. So that's what we're talking about. All right. Also, I'm going to give this phone number out in case anybody would like to call in this evening. It's 202-570-7057. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the core work. And I think that visual came up at one point. So our core work is where we talk about communication, ownership, relationship, and emotions, because again, this is like, these are the pillars of life. And so this week, really, the whole hour is core work, right? Because we're talking about all that it takes to do relationship. But I do want to take a moment to call out something that I've noticed about the building of intimacy and relationship. Can you guess what it is? Of course you can't. I haven't given you any hints yet. But, like, what do you think the single biggest undermining element is within an intimate relationship? Well, here it is. So I think it's withholding and keeping things separate or inside. It's not talking about something because you don't think it will be received well, right? It's the secret keeping. It's also the not saying something because you think you have to protect the other person from your feelings or thoughts. See, anything that's kept on the inside of you and not shared with the other person is part of the reason you're going to experience distance in the inside of a relationship, right? Even if you're not that aware of it. Now, I know this seems like the opposite of what I was saying about getting in someone else's world, right? In that example, I'm saying you can't know what it's like to be them. But on this side, I'm saying they can't know you if you don't share it with them. And the more you keep inside, the more of a gap there will be between the two of you. And this goal of emotional intimacy, is to get as close as possible. Gaps are space, and we want to close space. Now, I do want to make sure I'm not just talking about relationships with significant others. I'm talking about relationships with our children, relationships with our friends, relationships with our coworkers, right? Like, relationships deserve intimacy. They deserve closeness. So if you can get really committed to share what's inside, then some of the other challenges that come with this are actually workable, because that closeness allows you to see more pathways when you run into differences. See, if you can really get committed to share what's inside, you're going to find a way then to say things that are hard to say. You'll form new agreements with a person, this person, your persons, your peoples, right? So that both of you want to learn more from each other. And you'll realize that some of what you think needs to be reframed or processed in a different light. Like, hey, this is how I saw this. And the other person goes, oh, I don't think that's what was really happening there, right? This is where your unconscious self gets a lot of great additional information. And you'll find out that you haven't sized things up accurately. And you'll probably even feel things you didn't plan for. Ding, ding, ding. There's some opportunity for growth, right? The things we don't plan for, the things we don't expect. That's the stuff that has us open up in a new way. But all of this is worth the heart, because the big win is this emotional closeness, this being relatedness, this capacity to collaborate in life that results from it. So, to summarize, you get in someone else's world by not thinking you know, and then you share your world by offering up what you do know, while being willing to understand it from a different light and learn from it. So that's the thing about growth. That's really it. It's a constant, no matter what age you are. It's a willingness to keep dropping into, I don't know. What's here? What can I see? Getting out of being concluded about I already did this. I already learned this. Now I'm not going back there. Well, you know what? That takes all the fun out of life. And what happens in relationship is that it can get boring because it's so predictable, which doesn't even make sense, because we human beings are so complexly unpredictable, right? And so that's what we want to learn how to bring into the relationship, so that it keeps that zest and that zeal and that zing happening, right? And because relationships are what make everybody happy. Relationships are what make everyone happy. I have not met any person on the planet yet that doesn't flourish and expand inside of a relationship where they feel seen and connected and understood. All right. Okay, so here's where we're at. We are at this relationship Aikido, mastering the art of self-aware interactions. So I want to tell you how I got this title. I also want you to know I don't know anything about Aikido, but it'll explain it, because I want to tell you a little bit more about it. So I have this friend, Chase, who is very future fluent, a term he coined, which I think is brilliant. And he said, Sam, you have got to try this really cool AI tool called Claude. Okay. So when Chase suggests I try things, I usually try them. And so I did. And, at the same time, I'm thinking AI, and I'm not turning over my content. This is original stuff. I want it to feel authentic and genuine. I'm not turning that over to Claude, or having him or her, it, or whatever Claude, however you refer to Claude. I wasn't going to let that craft the show. But I did. I plugged it in, what I wanted to talk about tonight. And the next thing that it spit out was these 15 titles that I could use to serve it up. And I thought, ooh, that's really cool. Like, even though I don't know so much about Aikido, because I don't personally practice it. And so then I asked it to share some of the overlaps between Aikido and the subjects I attach to relationship work. And wouldn't you know it, it gave me not only background on Aikido, but also how these ideas around relationship they cross over to Aikido, to this practice. So anyway, I just wanted to share with you that I know everyone feels so concerned about AI, but like the internet and all things that have created advancement in our society, I think there's also a positive side of those things, or some way that you can make them useful, and make things easier, right? Less cumbersome. Like for me, putting titles on shows has always been my least favorite thing. I just want a title that says love or selfishness or um, getting up in the morning, And so I don't think I've done it very well. And I was kind of excited that it helped me actually create this. So also, I'm going to save the overlaps for the end of what we have to talk about, but I want to start with some practices that I think can improve your personal mastery. And your personal mastery is something you hone, it's something you practice, right? And that you bring really to any relationship that you're in. Okay, so it's 8:26 on my clock over here. I am going to go to break because I'd like to dive into this and then not have the break in between. So on that note, when we come back, we will really talk about some of these practices that help you create those relationships you really want.
Times TV.
In a world filled with constant noise and distractions, where finding meaning feels like an endless search. Introducing Daily Dispatch, your daily pathway to inner growth and self-discovery. Each day, receive a personalized self-growth prompt. Crafted by a seasoned growth expert with over 40 years of teaching personal mastery. Join thousands of professionals who have found clarity and purpose with Daily Dispatch. Start your free trial today and unlock a more meaningful life, one day at a time. Daily Dispatch. Discover your inner world. Live more consciously in every moment. Get your free trial at www.expeditionself.com/daily-dispatch.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
I love that last commercial. It's one of my favorites. So welcome back. I'm Sam Parado, and we are deep, deep, deep in this idea of relationship and how to do it and how to be self-aware as you go through it. So I have something I want to make sure I get to. So I'm hoping that I have timed this properly as we go through this. So in a super clear way, I want to say that you've got to be willing to source your own inner issues. And if you don't, you'll find yourself being insensitive to others. And how many of you have been either the giver or receiver of insensitivity because the thing that was being shared you thought was unimportant or crazy or overdone, right? So whatever you can't get in touch with and find a relationship to that is not wrong making. You're going to, in some way, be insensitive to someone else, because all of the things that happen in your life are a reflection of some inner material that you already carry with you. So if you agree with it, it's your material, right? We're glad about that. Oh, we connect like this. But if you think it's illogical, or you think then you're less likely to think it's your material, right? If you do everything to avoid that subject, you think, oh, that has nothing to do with me. No, that's also your material. So if you want to create more intimacy and closeness in your relationships, well, it starts by doing that for yourself, getting closer to you. And you can get some help with that, like by noticing all the moments that are filled with stuff when you blew someone else off, when you judged what they had to say or thought it was silly or dismissed it, right? You have to look at your own inner stuff that's resulting from interactions with others. When you don't embrace what's being said, that's like somebody just served you up lesson number 27, right? Because if you're going to bring more of you to other people, then that has to be found inside of you. Like the self-awareness thing, we just can't emphasize it enough. Okay, this next one, number 2, it's largely driven by unconscious. So underneath your behavior and your manners and your social etiquette-ish, I made that word up, person, like under there, you have a way that you relate to life. And that means you have a way you relate to the people in your life. What's here, what's there, right? I notice a lot of times that we humans will approach relationships like thinking that the other person is wrong and one's right? Usually you're the one who's right. Or they end up in this role of enemy or like the bad guy. And sometimes it's actually just a basic come from, like how you go out in the world. That's a pattern for you, like how you think of life. Maybe you can't trust people because you think they're going to put you in a bad situation or operate in a way that like feels negative. But it also happens in smaller interactions, like how one of your people acts at a party, or how this person handles taking you out to dinner when you're newly dating, or how your child reacted at an event and what you thought of that. And of course, we're talking not about big enemy, it can be little enemy, right? So being your enemy or in an enemy space, you assume that they're going to hurt you or do you wrong. And so it creates this culture or an environment that is kind of hostile or oppositional. And I think it's worth looking for this. Even if you're responding to what I'm saying as, oh, that's not me, I don't do that. I don't know, I find lots of singular moments where all of a sudden somebody lands on the other side of the river and they're not in a good space in my head. All right, number 3, if you see yourself as lacking power or feeling victimized and needing to defend yourself in any way, you can expect that your relationship mastery isn't going to live up to what's possible. I mean, most of us, we lack a sense of power at times. We feel defensive. But here's the thing about this one. You have to ask yourself, how often? What would people who are around me actually say? How often do I come from this place in relationships? Because that's where the real treasure is, at those times. You want to really be honest with yourself, because if you're operating in a place where you feel that way, well, then you're going to have a tougher time creating that new quality or new mastery. And then you're going to run into it in the other person, which I hear this a lot. I really want to create wonderful relationship, but my other person that I'm in relationship with isn't interested in that. Okay, well, we got to go back and look, where are we in this space where we feel like we don't have the power to create it? You might say, well, what do I do about this if it's going on? Well, that's the whole point of growth work, right? For any of us, we have to go into the totality of our lives and debunk the places where we bought into this idea that we're not safe and we have to defend ourselves. And also those places where something happened, or at least, how we perceived what happened. And we walked away concluding that we had no power at that time. See, relationships that really build on themselves, they do so because both people, all people, refuse to see the other one as the bad guy. or the enemy or the victimizer, and they see themselves as having their own power, whether they employ it or not. Employ it well, I guess we'd have to say. All right, number four. Number four is self-responsibility for emotion. I've done a radio show on this whole topic if you're wanting to just do this one piece, but it's basically the idea that your person doesn't make you feel things. They're not responsible for what you're feeling, and they are not to blame for your feelings of hurt or inadequacy or disappointment. You can feel all of those things as a result of actions that were taken, but the feelings actually come from you. This is so huge. I dare say our entire society doesn't quite get this yet, I think. And I can tell you my own work, I have moments where I forget it. It's just so triggery, right? See, we feel feelings that we carry, but someone doesn't make us feel them. Feelings show up, they come up, they're present, they're triggered, but the other person isn't the source of the feeling. I know, it often feels like it is, but you're not aware of the feelings 5 minutes before. Now something happens. It must be their fault. But those feelings are in there. They're floating up and down the waterway, of your inner self. And they're just waiting to be brought to the surface. So you have an opportunity to be with your entire feeling, sensory, body, soul being. All right, number five. It's a bit more complex. It's this idea that you do something in order to get something that you want in relationship. And this is important to the mastery because when your relationship is based on this number 5 one, then you're kind of stuck in a certain dynamic that is super duper limiting. So I'm going to make dinner and do the dishes so I get acknowledged and paid attention to. See, I get an emotional need for my actions. I'm going to be pleasant and agreeable so that I get to do what I really want on Saturday. I cannot tell you what a strategy this is and how often it is used to create an ongoing relationship dynamic. See, these are called in order tos. I'm going to do this in order to get that. I'm going to be this way in order to have that go this way. And the thing that makes them a bit dicey is that sometimes you really have no idea that the thing that was just given to you has strings attached. Or maybe you don't realize that you have attached strings until the person doesn't respond in a way you expected or reciprocate it. And now you're like, hey, wait a minute, what happened to that equation? It didn't quite work. So here's the thought. Can you imagine giving only what you want to give with no strings attached? I mean, little things, big things. See, every day habitual stuff like the laundry or paying for dinner to big things like always letting the other person talk ad nauseum, even though you're bored out of your mind and feeling like they're talking at you and you don't like how it feels. Those are bigger things. It's going on all the time. Relationship mastery is being self-aware of the way you set dynamics up and keep them playing out on top of the true needs you're working with. I do want to just say this. Again, I'm not implying at all that your relationships aren't awesome. What I'm actually trying to talk about are the slivers and the slices and the individual pieces that we just let stay that way, when in fact they could become part of the muscle and the fiber of what takes your relationship to the next level. All right, number 6. This has to do with your beliefs, which are likely connected to fears or loss, right? And so it's the idea that you believe you have to go along with things to keep the peace or keep things harmonious. See, relationships are supposed to be bumpy and full of practice. And they require you and the person or people you're relating with to bring this richness of you to everything. So if you've bought into some idea along the way that you're supposed to be even and predictable, dependable and constant, loving and kind and understanding, well, I think you get the idea. So this doesn't bring your mastery out into the open. It renders it less usable. It's up to you to go inside yourself, to get aware about where you've bought into the idea that you're supposed to make it easy on others simply so it's easy. It's different if you have an intention to work with what's really disruptive or challenging and even out, right? Then you're doing some work about it. That's not what I'm talking about when you just do easy, because that's what keeps your relationship where it is. All right, and the last one, number 7, has to do with this overarching wraparound sense that you bring to any relationship. And that's always this idea of checking in with yourself about what you're seeking and wanting to bring this growth along with it, right? You can want what you want and you can believe that it's good for you. But the added key is to be able to see why it's good and why it works for the relationship and those in it. I often see how people are concerned about this until their emotions are triggered or they're frustrated with someone, and then out the window it goes. They stop wanting to see the growth for themselves and the other person, and they instead want to be right because they got wounded or upset. And that becomes all that matters. So this last piece that I just spoke about is like your stand, right? The stand that you want to bring that calls you to be more. Okay, now, I hope that was really helpful. And I want to just talk about this Aikido part. So it's a martial art that was developed in the 20th century, and I cannot say the person's, I think it's by Morihei Ueshiba. Anyway, the name Aikido is translated to the way of harmonious spirit or the way of unifying life energy. And so I'm just going to go over a little bit about the idea of Aikido. So in Aikido, they use circular motions to redirect force. And when you think about relationships, we want to use the cyclical nature of self-reflection and growth in relationships, right? So that actually you don't have to use force. It's a more collaborative exchange. Okay, the other one is that in Aikido, maintaining one's physical and mental center is really important. Where in a relationship, the idea is that when you stay grounded in your truth and self-aware, right? That's like being in your center. All right. Isn't this cool? So in Aikido, being fully present and aware in each moment, oh boy, that is an awesome thing, right? And in terms of what I've been talking about is you're being present and self-aware for the emotional intelligence and the sensory information and the patterns created in your relationships. Okay, there's a couple more. In Aikido, you guide an attacker's force away from you. And of course, in relationship, what we're trying to do is transform like negative, unconscious, unproductive interactions into opportunities for growth. Is this cool? All right. And then let's see. In Aikido, we blend with an opponent's energy rather than conflict with it. And then in our relationship work, we try to find harmony between our own self-awareness and our own needs and the relationship. I think I have 2 more here. In Aikido, we focus and direct one's internal energy. We direct it, right? And then in relationship work, we channel emotional energy proactively, both down inside of ourselves and then through our conversations and our relatedness. Now, this last one is kind of interesting because I'll share it with you. So in Aikido, we protect oneself without harming the attacker. Okay, that makes some sense, right? So in relationship work, it says maintaining boundaries and self-respect in relationships without aggression. So the thing about this boundary word, I have never had an easy time with it, but I think it's basically this idea that we're caring for ourselves and we're taking care of ourselves, but we're not being aggressive in response to doing that. So I think that goes with this idea of not being defensive. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed our talking about relationship. And in closure to the meditation we started with, and then all of that conversation, to me, the most important thing you can do in a relationship is start saying what you see about yourself. And so if you found yourself finding pieces that were of value as we went through it, the next thing is to actually sit down with that person and say, I happen to be watching a podcast or whatever you want to call this, and this came up for me and I just wanted to share it with you, right? That's the way you open that door. All right, we're going to do something. I think we have time. So I have been talking about our virtual community for a while, and I had Armenta, and has her husband, Umberto, right? And Armenta wants to have a conversation with Umberto, okay, about feeling overwhelmed, trying to take care of her children and not feeling like she has any freedom. She is running a business out of her home. She's taking care of the kids while Umberto runs their food truck business. And now these are virtual characters, they're not real people. Okay. He's out at 6 a.m. He runs to the construction sites before they get moving. And then at break time, right? And then downtown at lunchtime. So he handles all of these before break time, right? He's busy, right? Then he handles the after school crowd and special events. And they have 3 trucks and 2 people are working for them. And she feels bad about this, right? She's wanting more freedom to do things during the day. And she'd like to go to an art class and maybe get a massage once a week. Okay, but she's conflicted because she understands he's working so hard to create the life that they're living. And you saw the little house. I'm not sure whether it's up today, but it's been in some of the past shows. And so she's going to start this conversation, right? She's wanting to get some help. And this was the other thing. She wants her daughter to join a dance troupe. Okay. And she calls him Hum. Okay. So his name's Umberto, but she calls him Hum. And he calls her Minty. All right. So I just want to show you what we have here. And actually, even though this is Minty and Umberto here, this is a terrific worksheet that if you want to sit down and plot out a conversation, you can actually use it, right? And what's super cool is, thanks to Mandy, our resident amazing artist, she actually created all these really cool, look at Umberto's face. Where is this? There we go. Look at his face right here. He's like, what? Are you kidding? Right? So anyway, I'm going to walk you through this conversation. Hum, what do you think about me hiring some help during the day? So like I could have some free time to do other things, and I could even help our daughter, participate in the dance troupe because I could get her there. And Umberto says, "Well, what made you start thinking about this? Like we're busy." And of course, Minty at this moment, right? She's like wanting to crawl into a hole because it feels like she's asking for something that's taking away from what they're doing. Well, I am just feeling a bit lonely sometimes, and I feel like I've lost some parts of myself. I'd like to have real daytime. Like I need a life outside of being a mom and an entrepreneur and a wife. And our daughter's wanting to get out of the house more too. So Umberto, he says, well, I'm working during the day too. Right? It feels like all of our energy has to go for the family and kids right now. And your little growing business too. What happens next? What happens next? Where do they have to drop in? What do they have to drop into to be able to actually care about the relationship? Okay. And again, anybody can call in if you'd like to help. I would love to hear it if you want to write hello at Expedition Self. I am going to actually give you some thoughts since I don't really, have another show to kind of talk about it. So in the context of all this relationship stuff that I'm talking about, the thing that is actually the most important is the one that has to do with circling around as the last one, circling around the idea that a relationship is about growth. So it's important when they go into this conversation for Minty and Hum that they recognize that there's a growth moment in front of them that they're providing. So it isn't like Minty is doing something to Umberto, like putting pressure on him, or Umberto is being stubborn, right? That's not where we want to be. We want to be in like, there's a growth opportunity here and I'm having an experience. And Umberto might actually be having a similar experience. He may be working too much. He may need something else. So we have to drop into these moments, not as like, what's the issue? What's the topic? But actually, how do we find a place that we're already connected, where we already have an agreement, where we already are aligned? All right. So that's part one. Part two that I want to say about this is that most people, when they get into these moments, they start talking about the tangible, practical. It's, I can't do that. Who am I going to get? I've got to get over there. Who, how am I going to handle taking care of the children if you're not here? Like, they start problem solving. That is not where we usually want to go next. Where we want to go is we want to talk in first about, can I get in your world? Can I see why you want it? Right now, you can see where we went back to that. Like, can Umberto understand why Minty is feeling what she is? And then, of course, Minty would be saying, I understand why you don't know how to respond to this because you're already working so hard. And now they have this opportunity to drop into a conversation about, what are they doing together? Where is survival running their lives? And is it too much? How do they support each other more and create space? Right? Like, the minute we don't get into that, I don't know how we're going to do that. And we get instead into, I can understand why you want that. Right? We're in each other's worlds. We're not being insensitive. We're not doing it in order to. We're actually dropping into what we've got together. That's when all the possibility, that's when that personal mastery really, really pays off, because you can create together in a way that you might not if you didn't have it. Okay, I hope that you found that helpful. I really am going to encourage you to go to our website, download this, and utilize it for yourself, because I think it's a great practice. I also want to say, if you have children, this is a great way to have map out conversation. I used to do it not such a pretty, amazing illustration, but I used to do it with my son, where we would map out, well, let's look at what's happening there, and what can you be aware of, and what feelings are you having, and then what would you say to that person, right? And so that was a lot of the friendship stuff that went on. Okay, I want to light our candles here. So, okay, I have 5 or 6 minutes to being done here. So I'm going to light this candle tonight, all right? So this one is for spirit, and this one is for creativity. There we go. Let's hope I don't set my desk on fire. There we go. See, there they are. All right. Now I'm going to put them down, because I'll hold them up when we're done. I want to just say thank you to Chris and the whole Times team, and how much they have supported my growth in the last 3.5 years, since February of 2021. This has been such an amazing help to me, so much expansion, and they were so gracious and kind and compassionate. And so, as I sign off, I do want to say that you all made it possible. You made it workable. You helped me in so many ways to move along my own path in life. So I want to say thank you. And also to my team, I want to say thank you so much, Mandy. So many wonderful creative things you created, and Stephanie, and all my friends. Okay, hold on. Who have been at my back throughout all of this. And then, I want to say, for those of you who have listened or have taken the time to think about any of the growth work, this is my personal mission in life. I live it 24/7. I believe in it all. And I have, done my own, I live what I teach, and I work and I grow. And so I want to say thank you for taking time out of your lives, because boy, we're living in a time where there's no time. And let's see if there was one more thing that I wanted to make sure I said. Oh, I'm going to put another plug in for getting those texts, because I know it helps to just get extra, like a daily reminder that I am somebody. I can be self-aware. My whole self matters. I, can bring something more to every moment that I have. And then the last thing is that you can go to our website and sign up just to get our regular emails. And that also gets you access to all the podcasts that we've gotten to do here on Times. And the last thing I would say is, if anyone would like to write me, hello@expeditionself.com. Look at this. I wrote this on the back of this file folder. Hello to expeditionself.com. All right. So on that note, I'm just going to put our candles and celebrate our full moon tonight. I just read or heard that we have an extra moon that got pulled into our gravity, our gravity, and is circling the moon. So it's going to be up there. It's too small to see, but we have an asteroid that's not going to hit us. So I don't know. It just feels like such a wild time that we know what's actually happening in the heavens, right? And we know that we can like expand who we are, and even all those research on neurology and the way the brain works. I mean, it's really, as much as it's a challenging time where we're all having to dig deep to really figure out what we're all about, it's also an amazing, creative, innovative, like shocking, there's just so many cool tools to play with. So, okay, on that note, there's our candles. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm signing off. Thank you for everything. All right. I think we're done. Thank you.